On July 31st, 2019, Fort Worth police were called about a homeless man near the abandoned Butler housing projects. When police arrived, they found Robert Miller.
What I've been told is that he was in a verbal altercation with someone, yelling back and forth, and they called the police. The police were telling him that they were only detaining him to find out if he had any warrants or anything.
Before arresting him, Miller asked if he could clean up his campsite, and according to a police statement, Miller became combative when his request was denied.
He did have ADHD. He had mental health disorders.
Miller was then arrested and taken to the Tarrant County Jail. 5 hours after arriving in a patrol car, he'd be leaving in the back of an ambulance, and he would die the next morning at John Peter Smith Hospital.
When he was small, he was lovely. I mean, it didn't make no sense. I'm still confused about it.
Nearly a year after his death, a medical examiner ruled that Miller died of natural causes due to a sickle cell crisis. But interviews with medical examiners who reviewed 252 pages of hospital and jail records suggest that the cause of death was inaccurate.
He did not die from sickle cell crisis, which is what's listed on the autopsy. We know there was wrongful conduct that occurred behind bars because he was brutally assaulted. And based on the evidence that we have, the circumstantial evidence suggests he was assaulted before he even made it to the jail, and then he was assaulted again at the jail.
This is what investigators say happened in the Tarrant County Jail. At 2:02 p.m., Miller arrived at the Tarrant County Jail. During the inmate screening process, he repeatedly refused to answer questions. At around 2:15, Miller was escorted to the change-out room, which had no camera. Accounts of what started the struggle between Millers and the jailers vary, but Miller was eventually pepper sprayed 3 times while he was lying face down. He was then taken for a medical evaluation. He told the nurse that he couldn't breathe, and he complained of pain in his chest. But his complaints were ignored, and jailers wrote that he was talking normally. At 2:58 p.m., Miller was left naked on the floor of his cell by deputies. Officer Swan wrote in a report that he saw Miller splash toilet water on his face. He asked Miller if he was all right or if he needed medical attention, and Miller shook his head. At 3:19, a nurse found him unconscious, and at 3:25 p.m., a Dr. Hart code was called, meaning that a crash cart or an ambulance was needed. At 3:38 p.m., the ambulance arrived at the jail, and it left for the hospital 25 minutes later. At 5:45 a.m. on August 1st, Miller was declared dead. Almost a year later, medical examiner Richard Fries determined that Miller's cause of death was a sickle cell crisis, but experts who spoke with the Star-Telegram said that is not possible.
Based on the information I reviewed from his hospitalization, there was absolutely no evidence that he had sickle cell anemia. Sickle cell anemia causes anemia at baseline, and it's always there. And the doctors who cared for him noted that he had a normal hemoglobin in his past records. And beyond that, in the reports and the evaluation that they did on his blood work while he was hospitalized, they don't see any sickle-shaped cells.
Yes, that's another thing that kind of surprised me. You know, it's when they say sickle, I'm going, what? You know, none of my kids have it.
It's not fair that they have to lose their loved ones over minor things that probably could have been resolved out of court if it had been handled correctly.
I want some justice. I want to find out why the police done him like that.